Today, we like to talk about something many people experience but struggle to put into words. That feeling that something in a relationship, a friendship, or even a work situation just doesn't feel right, even though nothing looks obviously wrong on the surface. Hi, I'm Laura.
And I'm Naomi. Yes, and what makes it confusing is that from the outside, everything may appear normal, even healthy. The person may seem helpful, confident, or involved, but internally you feel tense, unsure, or drained.
That internal discomfort is often the first signal that a boundary is being crossed, even if you can't yet explain how.
A lot of people assume that unhealthy dynamics always look dramatic or aggressive, but more often they're subtle. They show up in tone, expectations, and patterns over time. For example, someone might consistently tell you what you should do, framed as advice, concern, or experience. At first, it feels supportive, especially if you respect them or are used to relying on others for guidance.
But slowly, you may notice that your own preferences start to take a back seat. You hesitate before making decisions. You find yourself checking in more often.
That's an important moment to pause.
Because healthy relationships, whether personal or professional, support your ability to think, choose, and act independently.
They don't require constant permission or approval. One helpful way to think about this is to notice how you feel after interactions. Do you feel clearer, calmer, and more confident?
Or do you feel unsettled, doubting yourself, or mentally replaying the conversation?
Those emotional after effects matter.
Yes, and this applies across many areas of life: romantic relationships, friendships, family systems, work partnerships, even mentorships.
Anywhere there is influence, there is potential for imbalance.
Another common pattern is when someone positions themselves as the authority in subtle ways. They may speak with certainty about what's right. They may dismiss other perspectives, or they may frame disagreement as misunderstanding rather than difference. Over time, this can train you to defer rather than engage.
And that can happen even to capable, intelligent, independent people.
This is why awareness is so important, not to label others, but to stay connected to yourself. A healthy dynamic allows room for disagreement without fear. You can say, "I see it differently," and still feel respected.
You can say, "I make mistakes," without feeling shamed.
You can grow without being controlled.
When those things aren't present, people often compensate by over-explaining.
They justify their choices. They soften their language. They try to anticipate reactions.
That's a form of emotional labor, and it's exhausting.
Yes, and many people confuse that exhaustion with personal failure.
They think, maybe I'm too sensitive, or maybe I'm not communicating well enough.
But sometimes the issue isn't communication, it's the dynamic.
Another important point is intention versus impact.
Someone may genuinely believe they are helping. They may not see themselves as controlling at all.
But what matters is how the behavior affects you.
If you consistently feel diminished, anxious, or restricted, that impact deserves attention. You don't need proof or permission to take your experience seriously. This brings us to boundaries, a word that's often misunderstood. Boundaries are not about punishment or distance for its own sake. They're clarity. They define what you are responsible for and what you are not. Sometimes boundaries are spoken, and sometimes they're not. Yes, silence can be a boundary, choosing not to engage in every conversation, choosing not to respond to every message, choosing not to explain every decision.
That doesn't mean avoiding accountability or healthy communication.
It means recognizing when engagement is no longer productive or safe.
In healthy relationships, silence creates space, not tension.
In unhealthy ones, silence feels threatening because control relies on access.
And that's an important distinction.
People often feel guilty when they stop responding or pulling back, especially if they've been conditioned to keep the peace or manage other people's emotions. But guilt is not always a sign you're doing something wrong.
Sometimes it's simply a sign that you're changing a pattern.
Growth often feels uncomfortable at first.
And boundaries often feel unfamiliar before they feel empowering.
Another area where this shows up is in professional environments.
Control at work is often normalized.
Excessive oversight, constant urgency, approval for things that should fall within your role.
Over time, this can erode confidence and initiative.
People stop offering ideas, they wait for instructions, they play it safe.
That's not because they're incapable.
It's because the environment doesn't support trust.
Healthy leadership sets expectations and then allows people to work.
It doesn't hover or micromanage.
And whether you're in a leadership role or not, recognizing these dynamics helps you respond more intentionally.
Sometimes that response is a calm boundary.
Sometimes it's documentation.
Sometimes it's distance.
And sometimes it's simply clarity within yourself.
You don't always need to confront or explain.
Awareness alone can change how much power a dynamic has over you.
One of the most important lessons here is this: your internal experience matters.
If something consistently feels heavy, restrictive, or unsettling, it's worth paying attention to.
You are allowed to trust yourself.
You are allowed to prioritize peace over explanation.
You are allowed to step back from dynamics that drain you.
Healthy relationships in all forms should support your growth, not manage it.
They should feel expansive, not constricting.
And when something doesn't feel right, listening to that signal isn't selfish.
It's wise. Before we wrap up, we just want to say this conversation doesn't end here. These topics matter because they touch real lives, real relationships, and real moments that many people are quietly navigating.
If something in today's discussion resonated with you, take that as an invitation to reflect, not to judge yourself or anyone else. Awareness is often the first step towards change.
We'll be coming back soon with another topic that continues this conversation, exploring relationships, boundaries, and personal well-being in a grounded, practical way.
Until then, take care of yourself, trust what you notice, and remember that growth doesn't have to be rushed.